Hello everyone, welcome to Anime No Me, and thank you for joining us for another One Piece video. Throughout his journey, Zoro has gotten upgrades to all of his various swords, and now if you look at the set that he has at his disposal, they're not only extremely powerful, but also very durable blades. And this has allowed him to face more and more difficult enemies without the blades breaking or even damaging him during combat. However, now that the story is reaching its final saga, where all of One Piece's most powerful characters are going to gather together to face each other and ultimately decide the fate of our world, this has got to mean that Zoro is going to have the ability to increase his strength even more, and even improve his swords. In his current arsenal, Zoro has two swords that have a very good possibility of evolutionary capacity that would allow him to reach an even greater level with his swordmaster, and even possibly allow Zoro to face off against Mihawk on equal, if not better terms. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the possibility of Zoro being able to perfect his sword Enma, Katetsu, and even the Watuichimachi, who has always been by his side during his entire journey, all of the while looking to become the greatest swordsman in the world, in addition to carrying a great promise that Zoro once made to one of his closest friends. But before we dive into the video, if you're new to the channel, or even if you've watched a bunch of our videos, we'd be absolutely honored if you'd leave us a like, and even subscribe, and maybe leave us a comment letting us know what you thought of the video. It really helps us out, especially with that old YouTube algorithm, and it keeps motivating us to make more content. And if you'd like to help out the channel in a bigger way, consider sharing this video or another one of your favorites with a friend. But without further ado, let's get into the video. So my friends, currently Zoro has three swords at his disposal, one being Enma, the next one is the Sandai Katetsu, and finally the Watuichimachi. And one of them has great evolution potential, which means that the other two swords could also evolve together, becoming three higher grade swords than what they are currently ranked at. One of the most powerful swords that Zoro possesses is his most recent acquisition in Wano, and that is the sword Enma, being one of the 21 great grade swords. And this sword was made by the blacksmith Shimotsuki Kozuburo in Wano country. This is a sword that was wielded in the past by Kazuki Oden, a great swordsman in his own right, and a person who even dared to face and cross blades with Goldie Roger, although he wasn't so successful because of the incredible strength and hockey control that the former Pirate King possessed. Together with Enma's twin sword, the Abeno-Habakiri, Oden was able to do some great deeds around the world, and one of the greatest feats shown so far was cutting Kaido, causing a large scar on the Yonko's tough skin. After Oden lost his life, Enma was inherited by his daughter Kazuki Hiyori, who would later give the sword to Zoro in exchange for him allowing Shusui, a national treasure to Wano, to remain at the grave of Ryuma. But despite losing Shusui and having to leave it in Wano, Enma was a very good upgrade and is honestly one of the best swords in the world, and Hiyori considered this a worthy replacement for even the legendary Shusui. Kazuki Sukiyaki described Enma as being able to cut through the depths of hell, paralleling its twin sword, the Amino-Habakiri, by being able to cut through the sky itself. Even Kozuburo himself considered Enma his greatest masterpiece compared to all the other blades, including the Watuichimachi, demonstrating that this sword truly is incredibly powerful and that it could evolve even further in the future. In flashbacks during our story of One Piece, we saw that Oden had used Enma alongside the Amino-Habakiri to split the giant mountain god, hardening him and then executing Togen Shirataki. Furthermore, both of these blades were clashed against one of the 12 supreme grade swords, the Murakumuragiri that was owned by Whitebeard, and Ace that was once wielded by the former Pirate King Goldie Roger. Through the perfect mastery of the sword, Oden even managed to injure the nearly invulnerable Kaido, giving him a huge scar on his chest and demonstrating that Enma has an extremely high cutting capacity. Throughout our story of One Piece, we've had a few sword makers that have described swords as almost as if they have a will of their own, and Enma is no different. In fact, it has this distinct trait of releasing its wielder's haki in excessive amounts, and even slashing more than intended, causing it to become a sword that is nearly impossible to wield or even master. This is one of the reasons that no one other than Kazuki Oden was ever able to tame Enma, at least until Zoro got the sword and also has demonstrated control over it, but he still doesn't have complete control over the blade. As his first test with the sword, Zoro was able to slice through a cliff, despite intending to just chop down a tree. But because Enma forced Zoro to use his haki, this weakened his arm and increased the power of the strike. Thankfully, Zoro's mastery of armament haki allowed him to take his haki back, something that Sukiyaki actually praised him for, because no normal swordsman would have been able to take their haki back from Enma. In fact, any other normal swordsman would have had their haki completely drained, leaving them as a husk on the ground. Through improving his control with the sword, Zoro was was able to injure Kaido in dragon form, leaving another permanent scar on him in his hybrid form, and then deal significant damage and defeat a Lunarian, of course being the right-hand man to Kaido, being king. Now, according to Sukiyaki, if Zoro ever managed to make Enma a permanent black blade, it would increase itself in rank, suggesting that it could become a supreme grade sword like the others in the world. This alone proves that swords can indeed evolve if their user managed to extract the maximum of their capacity, to the point that it becomes a supreme grade blade. But of course, not all swords have this ability. Only ones like Enma, which have already been created and started out as an extremely powerful blade, those are the ones that tend to have this evolutionary capacity. Moving on to Zoro's other two blades. These two were created by extremely skilled blacksmiths from Wano country. Swords that may have that same evolutionary capacity, just like Enma does. Let's first start by talking about one of the masterpieces created by the legendary swordsmith of Wano, Shimotsuki Kozaburo. And this blade is classified as one of the 21 great grade swords, the Watuichimachi. And it's among one of the most powerful swords in the world, second only to Enma. In fact, when Tashiki first saw the blade in Zoro's possession, she herself described it as a magnificent katana of the highest caliber, and didn't accept the fact that such a famous blade was in the hands of a bounty hunter turned pirate, leading her to want to hunt down Zoro. More than any other thing, the Watuichimachi holds a very important significance to Zoro, and though he allows others to examine it, he's always refused to hand over the blade to just anyone. Now, the Watuichimachi is extremely durable, even without being imbued with haki, withstanding a Yoru attack from Dracul Mihawk, a supreme grade sword, and also considered one of the strongest black blades in existence in the world. The Watuichimachi took this strike long before Zoro ever knew about haki, and even how to defend properly with it. Another example of when Zoro demonstrated the incredible durability and cutting power of the Watuichimachi was earlier in the story when Zoro fought against Mr. One and was able to slice through his steel body. Later in another battle on Thriller Bark, the Watuichimachi went head-to-head against Shusui, which is a renowned black blade that was wielded by a zombified samurai and a reanimated Shimotsuki Ryuma that had been using Brook's shadow for an extended period of time. Now, though he was worried that his katana might break if the battle continued, Zoro was able to make it out with the blade unscathed. Following his training from the time skip, where Zoro enhanced not only his strength but also his abilities using armament haki, the Watuichimachi's power and defenses were amplified to the point where he was able to slash Pika in his gigantic form multiple times before Zoro finished off this opponent with an extremely powerful cut. Together with Enma, it was the Watuichimachi that was able to cut through Kaido's tough skin and even leave a permanent scar on his chest, which already proves that this sword is incredibly durable and sharp. Now, one of the reasons why these two blades may work together extremely well is that the Watuichimachi and Enma were forged by the same person, which means that it would also be able to evolve just like Enma if Zoro managed to fully extract the full potential of these two blades. Finally, let's talk about the Sandai Katetsu, which is one of Grau's swords. And like all of its predecessor Katetsu swords, it's considered to be a cursed blade, and this is one of Kozuki Sukiyaki's creations. Early on in our story, Zoro found the sword in a barrel of cheap katanas at a shop in Logtown, and once he felt its quality, he did want to purchase it. But when the owner saw Zoro's interest, he didn't want to allow him to buy it, telling him about the curse. However, Zoro loved the idea and the concept, and decided to test his luck against the curse. So he threw the blade in the air and held out his arm, willing to let it slash his arm should the curse hold. And Zoro's luck did in fact hold, and the blade circled perfectly around his arm, and the shop owner was so surprised that he allowed Zoro to have it. Because the Katetsu is a creation of Kozuki Sukiyaki, one of Wano's greatest swordsmen, and is also an imitation of Katetsu's Nidai Katetsu, the Sandai Katetsu does have superior qualities and strength compared to other swords, despite being a Maito, which is among the lower grades of swords. Since coming into his possession, Zoro has been able to demonstrate some amazing things with the Katetsu, such as cutting a sea train carriage in half, in addition to being durable enough to block blows from Kaku's enhanced Rokushiki techniques, who is a Zoan wielder, and therefore had his physical strength enhanced in his Zoan form. The Sandai Katetsu has also gone up against and withstood strikes from the far superior Great Great swords, and has even allowed Zoro to use it multiple times in difficult combat without it ever breaking or showing any visible damage. Following his training in the time skip, along with Zoro's enhanced strength and abilities, the Sandai Katetsu severely injured Hody Jones underwater, and he needed an overdose of the energy steroids to keep himself alive. This same blade was also able to withstand some extremely powerful strikes and attacks in Punk Hazard, where the Katetsu was used alongside Shusui and the Watuichimachi to block a massive bite from a dragon. During the raid on Onigashima, the Sandai Katetsu was durable enough to withstand Kaido and Big Mom's combined attack without damage. Even after being infused with Conqueror's Haki and Armament Haki, it was still able to deal a significant amount of damage to King, a Lunarian who is known to be nearly invulnerable. Now, although this sword is still very powerful and durable, many people have speculated that Zoro still might exchange it for a more powerful Katetsu in the future, such as the Sandai Katetsu, which is considered one of the 12 supreme grade swords, and whose location is still currently unknown. And among the Katetsu, it is the Shodai that is the most powerful, and could be the only blade that would make Zoro want to exchange his Sandai Katetsu for the Shodai Katetsu. And this would allow Zoro to finally have 3 extremely powerful swords capable of facing Mihawk in the future. But with all that said, my friends, we would now love to know what you think about it. Which of Zoro's 3 swords do you think is most likely to evolve? And how do you think it's going to happen? Secondly, how do you think it's going to come down to when Zoro and Mihawk will finally have their rematch? And do you, like we here on the channel, think that it might be the most amazing way to come full circle, that Zoro is able to use his new black blades to finally shatter and break Yoru, just as Yoru did to Zoro's swords so many years ago? Let us know what you think about that and everything else we mentioned today in the comments below. So as we wrap up our video for the day, we'd like to thank you all so much for watching the video, especially those of you who've made it here to the very end. Be sure you comment on any themes or ideas that you'd like to see in future videos. And also, since you made it this far, give us a like and hit that red subscribe button before you head out to take on the rest of your day. I hope to see you all in our next video. Let's keep sailing this giant sea together. Take care.